You ever notice how travel creators always look like they woke up inside some type of postcard? Yeah, funny how nobody seems to show the parts where you're miserably jet lagged, hungry, but all the menus are in a different language, all while, cussing at your phone and Google Maps like it owes you money. In this video, we're gonna highlight some things that a lot of content creators tend to miss. It's not all what it's cut out to be. A lot of content creators tend to skip over some of these things because it doesn't fit with the whole I'm living the perfect life aesthetic. How is it going, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now, of course, there is no shortage of travel, content out there, whether it be expats, people who are essentially tourists for a living. And if you're not really diving in, if you've never really done some of these things yourself, it can be super easy to think like, wow, this just seems amazing. Everything is perfect. I want to travel to a new country every 3 weeks as well. And I think that'll just be amazing for me and my mental health. But you know how we do it here on this channel. 100% transparency only. I will tell you, there are things that come with traveling full-time or living in a new country that are not all peachy keen. None of these things are insurmountable. You can totally adapt and fight your way through them. But if you get blindsided, it can be really easy for some of these to mess up your experience entirely. So let's get into it. First things first, and you'll notice this is kind of an overarching trend throughout the points we talk about today. Traveling frequently, or living in a foreign country in general, it is not all, beaches and rainbows. You're gonna have really bad days. Now, if you're looking on Instagram, YouTube, whatever, all you're seeing are these picturesque beaches, $300 a month condos with infinity pools on the roof, all the best food you could ever imagine eating for a fraction of the cost of what it is in your country. But I'll be the first to tell you, it is not all this. I think we're all guilty of it. I catch myself doing it sometimes as well, especially on Instagram. A lot of us, we want to make our lives look a little bit better than they really are. And this happens with travel content creators, just like anywhere else. So something that is important to understand. If you are doing these things a lot, or you're planning to move to a new country for the first time, there's gonna be frustrating days. There's gonna be things you don't enjoy. There's gonna be a lot of situations that are not fun at all. And a few of those specific situations we will get into a bit later in the video. Sometimes you will be disappointed. As content creators, I feel like it's really important, and a lot of us do it, to always try to find the positivity in places, which there's always something. You can always dig in and find things that you do enjoy. But if you are going to these new places frequently, or even if you're planning on just moving to a new country, there's going to be things that you don't enjoy for a multitude of reasons, whether, it be canceled flights, canceled bookings. There's all kinds of stuff. You're going to go to places that seemed a whole lot different online than they really are in practice. Now, this might get me a little bit of hate, but this is a big way that I feel about Bali. I think the online image of Bali is stark contrast compared to what life is like actually there. It can be really easy to misjudge these places that you're going and the things that you're doing just by looking at content online. And a thing about, I think a lot of people get caught up in this is like, it's okay to have preferences. It's okay to not enjoy some places that you've been, or enjoying more places than others. I feel like some people are afraid to say, hey, this wasn't really my vibe. I'm not sure if I would come back here. That's completely okay. As travelers, we're all looking for different things and different experiences, no matter where we're going. And for you to have boundaries of what you're willing to do or not willing to do, or places that, things that you like and you don't, that's completely okay. So if you end up going somewhere and you're not crazy about it, especially if you're thinking about becoming a content creator yourself, don't be afraid to tell people, hey, I'm not passing judgment here, but these are the things that I wasn't crazy about. If these are things that will bother you, maybe consider looking somewhere else. There's nothing wrong with that. In regards to this, I want to hear from you. If you have done, some extensive traveling, or even maybe just some yearly vacations, whatever it may be, I want to hear down in the comments what the most overhyped place you've been to and why. Let us know down in the comments. Now, being disappointed by certain places is the perfect segue into our next point. Look at us, segues. We're doing it. We're professionals around here. If you are traveling a lot, you're going to be going around, you're going to be meeting new cultures, you're going to be in places that you've never experienced before, you're going to be meeting other travelers. I've fallen into this myself a few times. It can be really easy to think for some reason that as you're traveling, if you meet other travelers, they're gonna be on the same wave as you. You know, you show up to a place, you're like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This isn't what I like to do, or this is what I like to do. It can be easy to think like, oh, hey, there's other Americans here, or wherever you're from, it's close to the same age as me. We'll probably get along. We'll probably be exactly the same. That is absolutely not true. Another thing that is very important to understand, if you are traveling a lot or you're moving to a new country, whether it be, locals, unfortunately, or other travelers, you are gonna be disappointed by some people. There's nothing wrong with that. It's completely fine. A big part of this that I've experienced and I've seen that kind of bothers other people, everybody talks about culture shock, and we will get into some serious points about that later in the video as well, so make sure you stick around. But when it comes to culture shock, one of the things that comes with that is until you start traveling, you don't realize the major cultural differences that are normal in your country that are not a thing in other places. A great example that I like to use is, it's not a huge deal, but it's one of those things, especially if you're American, you don't realize that not everybody in the world thinks that way. And, as Americans, you probably know we've kind of got this unsung rule about personal bubble. As you're traveling around, you're gonna realize there's a lot of places where that's just not a thing, especially in super populous countries where there's just a ton of people everywhere. There's gonna be people in your bubble, man. And it's one of those situations where it's like, even though you're uncomfortable, it's hard to be outwardly upset because that person may not even realize that they're making you uncomfortable. Especially what I've found in Thailand is you're gonna meet people who are not on the same wave as you. And then whether it be rude or inconsiderate travelers, or one thing that really bothers me is as a traveler, if I'm in a place and I see other travelers being shitty towards the locals, you're gonna run into a lot more people that are not in the same headspace as you, as opposed to those who are. And without a doubt, probably the most misleading thing that I see happening with so much travel content nowadays. Now, don't get me wrong, I've done this a bit myself as we've, gone in. We're almost 400 videos deep now, which is crazy to think about. I feel like I've grown a little bit as a creator and kind of put a focus more on making sure that I'm communicating how I really feel so you guys can have an understanding about that, especially when it comes to traveling to new countries for the first time. A lot of the time you'll hear culture shock, culture shock, culture shock this, culture shock that, and it can, a lot of people frame it as this amazing thing. Now, don't get me wrong, there are positives to experiencing culture shock, but just like it, the overarching idea that traveling full time is always amazing, this is the exact same thing with culture shock. Just like our example with the personal space bubble deal, if you're American, this is gonna happen all the time. At least with me, I've found that it's about 50-50. Half of the culture shocks that I experience are cool and interesting, and you're like, wow, I never really thought that was just something we do in the West that people don't do in other places. It's much different. And then on the other side of that, there's two sides to every coin. There's a lot of it where it can be frustrating, it can be uncomfortable. You're gonna experience things. We've mentioned it before on the channel. You're gonna be in places or have to deal with things or deal with people. And the culture differences are gonna make that much harder for you. Not to say that you can't figure it out and make it happen, but it can be really hard to have a full understanding, an idea of how people are gonna respond or deal with things when those cultural differences are as stark as they are. Now, granted, this really depends on where you're going. You know what I mean? If you're American and you're traveling to Canada for the first time, you're not gonna experience this nearly as much. Now, if you're American and you come to Southeast Asia, for example, you're gonna experience this frequently. And yes, it can be great a lot of the time. It can be interesting, especially if you're genuinely looking to learn from the culture that you've immersed yourself in. But there are times when you are not gonna enjoy it. There's gonna be times where you're gonna question whether you made the right decision or not. Trust me. And there's gonna be other times when you're happy that you did. There are tons of these situations that you are guaranteed to run into if you wanna travel quite a bit or you wanna become an expat. The things a lot of people tend to kind of glaze over is the most simple things that you would need to do in your home country can become absolute missions. But personally, I do believe that, dealing with these adversities can be very good for self-growth. It has been for me. So hopefully now you have a bit of a better insight to what life overseas is actually like. Of course, as always, This channel is always an open conversation. If you have any suggestions or, misnomers or things that you feel like people should be more honest about in their travel content, please feel free to drop them below. If you did make it this far in the video, thank you so much for being here and hanging out for the entirety. Day 22 of No Chill November. Wild. It has been a blur, but everybody who's been here for all of it, keeping up with all the videos, I really appreciate you. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see y'all tomorrow.